Andrew Jeune here with your Asian Racing Review, joined as always by Michael Cox, editor of the AsianRacingReport.com. Michael, coming up a big weekend. We're going to focus primarily today on Japan and Hong Kong, two big Group 1s over the weekend. We had the Yushun Himba, the Oaks, last weekend. It was the Colts' turn this time round and a bit of an upset.
Yeah, in the Tokyo Yushun, and a huge day for Damian Lane, Australian jockey Damian Lane. All of our viewers and readers at Asian Racing Report will be well versed in the exploits of the Western Australian over there in Japan. And he added to his legend yesterday with a tremendous ride in the Derby.
Yeah, we had a note come in as well from a viewer or reader asking about Dame, which we'll get to in a second. But we're going to have a look at this race, probably from the start, I think, Michael, in terms of how it actually breaks down. If we're looking for the winner, barrier 12 for Tastiera, the favourite comes out of barrier number 5. Lost a rider at the start there, took no part, but take us through the early stages of this. Bit of a charge of light braid coming into the first turn.
Yeah, and we made a point with Damian's ride on Sadashi in the Victoria Mile recently, where he was criticised for that ride from a wide gate, putting the horse prominently. Well, he's done the same thing here. He wants to be forward so that he's not behind horses. He's taking matters into his own hands. Yep, and then it's a matter of getting the horse to settle from there as well. We see the favourite, Sol Orient's, jump from barrier 5, and he's just behind Damian in the run. Damian has him in his back pocket pretty much the whole way, and that'll come into play a little bit later. But what I want to talk about is, this is the way Damian has ridden a lot of races there in Japan, especially from these gates. He wants to be forward, take up a prominent spot. Then he has the option, if horses come around, about whether he wants to be, how far off that pace he wants to be. Because what can happen if you're 2 or 3 pairs back is that the horse outside the leader can give up that spot if horses come around 3 wide. So Damian was in a prominent spot, as we often see in a big race in Japan, a big leader stretching out, maybe 10, 12 lengths in front. But, another point I want to make is just the balance and the poise he's riding with, Damian. It's one thing to say we want him to be prominent and we want to get him out of the gates, but we're not riding motorbikes here. He's on a horse that, he's given him a signal to push and go forward. Well, now he's got to get him to settle and relax. And I just thought the way his seat is and the way how relaxed he is in a race, Damian, it's really...
But he's travelling very strongly on the turn here as they swing, and he's third in the shot. There's obviously one off clear. I thought in the Guineas, this is what I kept coming back to, in the Guineas, he got to the front and almost stopped a little bit, but Sol Orient's came past him and gave him windburn. But it's right there at that point that possibly the winning the race, do you think?
Yeah, just at the 400, if Damian just puts his head down and just rides and just goes for the whip, maybe the horse drifts out, and you can see he drifts out late. But instead, he stays tight and he closes the door on Sol Orient's. Sol Orient's has to check, come off heels, come around him, and you see that the margin's only a neck. That probably made the difference. If Damian leaves the door open on his inside, Sol Orient's probably wins.
Yeah, Sol Orient's in defeat is still obviously a very exciting prospect. Hasn't got a lot of miles on the clock as yet. It'll be interesting to see these two meet down the track as well. Maybe the 2400 just blunted him a little bit too.
Yeah, and being put into that prominent spot, I think, he wasn't wrong to want to be forward from barrier 5. But yeah, obviously we didn't see the explosiveness that we saw in the Guineas. Damian made sure he was clear when he needed to be, but the beauty of it was that he got the best of both worlds. He was clear, but he knew where his main rival was, and he ensured that there was no run for him on the inside, that it wasn't going to be easy.
Liberty Island then obviously head and shoulders on the filly side of things, the 3-year-olds anyway, at this stage. So the Colts now looking a little bit more even. Yeah,
let's see what happens. Look, I think Sol Orient's didn't lose any admirers. His 2400 his best. He's very inexperienced. That was his 4th start. So let's wait and see.
Okay. Did have a question relating to Damian Lane as well from Nathan Rose, in actual fact. Would Damian consider moving to Japan full time, do you think?
Well, that's his 5th Group 1 in Japan. I think he's won about as many overseas as well. It's a question that's often asked. Look, when I've asked Damian before about it, he said no, that a full-time license so is not on the agenda. Now there's a few ways that a jockey can qualify to be able to ride 3 months per calendar year in Japan, and some of them are winning big races outside of Japan or in Japan, finishing at a certain level in your local jurisdiction jockeys championship. So in Hong Kong it'd be the top two, in Melbourne top two or three, in Sydney. So Damian's qualified to ride in Japan 3 months per year on a part-time basis. To be able to ride full-time, as we see, there are 2 foreign jockeys licensed full-time to ride in Japan, and that is the Frenchman Christophe Lemaire and the Italian Mirko De Muro. Both jockeys in 2014 went through a rigorous process to become qualified, and that is that they will need to do a sit-down exam, a written exam in English, which Damian would have the advantage there, that he actually speaks English as his first language. And had the Italian and the Frenchman complete a written test in English with just bizarre questions based on the history and statistics and, sires of winners. I don't think I'd pass the exam. As much as we pride ourselves on our Japanese racing knowledge here, it is difficult. Some of the questions that I've heard asked, like from the past, like what percentage of race fans at Japanese race courses are female? It's available on record. You got to know where to look and study. But these are the sort of questions, and it's like it's a show of reverence and respect to the sport. How much do you want to be a full-time jockey? So firstly, he'd have to do that. And one of the little known facts about the test that the foreign jockeys have to undertake, which Joe Moreira famously failed in 2018, studied for the test, was set to leave Hong Kong, announced he would leave Hong Kong, sat the exam and failed, is that the jockeys also have to waist to 52 kilograms, not to ride, but to do the exam. So you've got jockeys in there trying to do these exams, having wasted away. Jockeys that will never ride 52 kilos, never ride at the bottom of the weights. It's a huge sacrifice. And then after that would require, Damian does a great job of really respecting the culture and forming relationships. As we see, he rides for the biggest stables. Noriyuki Hori, the winning trainer there, he's forged a great relationship with him. Carrot Farm, one of the biggest, owners in Japan. He's done a great job of learning about the culture, how to approach people, how to speak. But the other part of the exam to become a full-time jockey is to do a mock stewards inquiry, talk to the stewards in Japanese, and show that you could go through a race day on your own without an interpreter. So it would require a lot of study. I think right now, maybe Damian's got an announcement there. I don't think Damian's interested in riding full-time in Japan. I think he gets the best of both worlds, and he's not yet 30, just married, settled down. It was great to see his wife Bonnie there yesterday and enjoying the day. The answer, from what I've heard and from what I think, is a no, because I think he's got a lot to achieve in Australia as well. How good is the prize money in Australia? What he's done has been absolutely tremendous. It's opened so many doors for him there. And look, this is the type of horse is going to travel.
Yeah. But when you explain it the way you have, and the fact that he still could ride there for 3 months and go back and ride these horses anyway in the big race, it's not a case of why wouldn't he go to Japan, it's why would he go to Japan? It's they open so many doors on the international stage for him anyway that he can have the best of both worlds, unless he's got a real deep wanting to actually go and live there and experience the entire culture. I think
it's a tough gig, even to go there on a short stay. It's a alien environment and pretty challenging, enjoyable on a stint, but to go and live in another country is a huge sacrifice. That I wouldn't think so, but look out for Damian Lane on all sorts of Japanese horses. Now, if you thought his connections were strong before, this is the race to win the Derby.
Yeah.
We were lucky, or I was lucky enough to be there last year on Asian Racing Report's very first day of operation. Really, we got to cover the Tokyo Yushun, and look, there's just such a special feeling around this race. You know, some of the other Group 1s, it's like a party atmosphere. Some of the fan-voted races, like the Arima Kinnan, young crowd. This is a really reverential, special occasion, a once-in-a-lifetime race. Yeah, he has really done something special here, Damian, by winning his first Derby.
All right. Well, the Derby holds similar sort of standing in Hong Kong. We're not talking Derbies in Hong Kong. We're talking Champions and Chater Cup. It was the final Group 1 of the season. We get up to the 2,400 metres here, and the red-hot favourite, 1.2 favourite, was Romantic Warrior, Zac Purton in the saddle. We had the winners from the last 2 years, in actual fact, Panfield and Russian Emperor, who was back to defend his crown.
Yeah, Romantic Warrior joins an illustrious list of champions. Viva Pitaka, Vengeance of Rain, Designs on Rome, Ambitious Dragon. Actually, Ambitious Dragon's saddlecloth, number 1 saddlecloth here. I wonder if that was from the... Actually, I know the race that's from. It wasn't. He was wearing the number 1 saddlecloth in the Champions in Chater. That's not the race that is. It's not from that one. And he was rolled by a horse everyone remembers, Liberator. Do you remember him?
I do.
Yeah, 25-1, I think, on that day. It's... Look, it's just a graveyard for favourites, this race. You know, it just looks like a simple task. He was $1.20. It just looked so straightforward for Romantic Warrior. Okay, let's talk about the race, though. A little bit of criticism of Zac online, which is always going to happen.
He wasn't expected to lead, was he? I think rolled out the gates. It didn't seem like he was desperate to lead, but just found himself in front when Moneycatcher was drawn his outsides, didn't press on in the early stages.
Well, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know, we talk about Ambitious Dragon. Should have won that race. He didn't because of tempo. Yeah. Not saying Ambitious Dragon should have led that day for Umberto Rispoli. Just a trivia sort of question for you. Umberto rode him that day. Look, what if he took a hold and Moneycatcher gets a easy, just walks down the back? What then? I mean, what about the outcry then? I just think if you look at the sectionals, the horse is $1.20. Yeah, he gets softened up by Moneycatcher. That's not ideal. Puts himself in a vulnerable spot, maybe. I don't know. I think if a horse is good enough, he wins. And the odds would indicate he was not just good enough, he's $1.20. Anyone who walked into that, if you think he needed to be cuddled to get the trip, well, then why are you taking $1.20? That's the questions I would have for any punter that took that. If there's a distance query, why take the odds? Coming back to it, and look, this has been something we've talked about this show. What about trainer Danny Shum? If we want to talk about Zac, maybe we should talk about the trainer. Are we going to find out later that there was something amiss with the horse? Was he at his best?
Well, that happened, didn't it? After it was the Gold Cup, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, it didn't come out actually until after his
it wasn't in the
QE2.
stewards report. It wasn't in the
QE2
stewards report. It was coming to the QE2 win when Danny Shum reveals, at last start, the horse wasn't right. He wasn't right before that race. So let's see this time. Is there some sort of excuse this time? Look, for me, in all seriousness, those two factors aside, jockey trainer, sometimes I don't think you have to blame somebody. I just don't think he got the trip. It's the last time we'll see him at 2,400 metres.
We need to give Russian Emperor a bit of credit though for and Douglas White and Hugh Barman gave him a super ride, judged perfectly. He's been overseas this year as well. It's not easy to go anywhere, but he went to the Middle East, won there. He's come back and defended his title.
He won in Qatar and he ran a good race in the lead up to the Dubai Shima Classic, but then he was very disappointing on the big night in the Shima. Didn't look right at all. Didn't handle the track. Coming back to a firm track at Sha Tin, well, the odds indicated that he wasn't wanted in betting. But yeah, great training performance from Douglas White. Back-to-back champions in Chater Cups for Russian Emperor.
Yeah, he's now in that 2,400 metre horse. There's only 3 races in Hong Kong over 2,400 metres, so you just wonder if Douglas will be plotting an overseas path maybe for him next year.
Well, yeah, wonder if the Cups in Australia hold any sort of allure, and if he needs some give in the ground, maybe Northern Hemisphere. Yeah. Let's see.
All right, we will see. Right, that takes the weekend. Looking ahead to this weekend, we've got Silvac in Japan for the Sudakinan, and it's Derby weekend coming up in the UK as well.
It is. Any mail for us there?
Not yet, no. But you never know where the Derby form will crop up because Serpentine, who won the Derby there I want to say 3 years ago now, was racing in Queensland on the weekend, finding out the finish of the Premier Cup with Kukaracha, who was a Queensland Derby winner, who beat Senor Toba his Derby year. Of course, Senor Toba was going around at Chartin.
These are great connections.
So it's this long distance form you've got to be aware of.
I think you might have just used up one of your angles for LJ Confidential, your wonderful column later in the week. I don't know what you're going to write about now that you've gone through that Derby, like 6 degrees of separation.
We'll find something.
You lost me in Queensland. Just what to watch for in the end of the season as well. Zac Purton, just coming back to Zac, on a chase with history. Yeah.
He's just passed his own record for prize money in a season, which is an astronomical figure. Now he's chasing down Joe Moreira's record.
A 4-timer yesterday, very nearly a 5-timer, and a big day for the Chartin report, by the way. Sign up for free analysis and selections there. It was a huge day for our followers there. Zac, 14 meetings to go in the season. He needs 28 wins to equal Joe Moreira's record of 170 wins in a season. That's the all-time mark set by Joe. So that's 2 wins per meeting. Can he do it?
Quite possibly.
Well, I think the key is suspension.
Yeah.
Can he ride within himself? I think he's well within target. If Zac just, it's about not rushing. I think at this stage, I think that he just needed to put 3 or 4 to make that equation a more manageable thing. It's a bit like a 2020 cricket run chase, isn't it? We need the worm graph, the Unisys worm graph there to talk through it. Other news, just to hand, Lucky Sweynesse will not contest the Everest. Right. It's disappointing. Reported by Chris Roots in the Sydney Morning Herald today. It's disappointing for mine. Well, Romantic Warrior definitely won't be going to Japan to contest any sort of staying races. You wouldn't think, although the race they had talked about, 2,000 metres, 10-hour show. Look, I think 2,000 is his trip, high cruising speed, 2,000 metres is the go.
All right. Anything else to look out for on the site this week?
Oh, we've got some great stuff coming up. 1 year anniversary this week, by the way. We've got a great piece from Bren O'Brien, our wagering expert, on the unregulated gaming operators out of licensed in Curacao crypto world. So have a read of that there on the site. And also an exclusive sit-down interview with Joe Moreira. I had the chance in Australia to sit down with Joe, and we covered a lot of ground. We talked about horses, what he loves about riding. We talked about sort of general aspects as well, but we really got into some detail as well about his rivalry with Zac Purton, but also his departure from Hong Kong. You know, a lot of speculation there at the time. He's had time to think about it. We're sort of 6 months down the track from his departure from Hong Kong, or his official departure, a bit longer. So it was really interesting to hear Joe's perspective now that a little bit of time has passed. He's ridden away, and also why he rides in Brazil. Why is he riding in $150,000 races in his homeland? So it was a really enjoyable chat for me. I hope that the viewers enjoyed it as well. Jump on the site. We'll put it out in 3 parts this week. All right.
Look out for that then. Like and subscribe, of course. Keep following us on all the social channels as well, and tuning in for more from Asian Racing Review.